Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence. I am Patrick. We are here with another episode of our new Raise series, which is when I take conversations that we often have on Chasing Excellence and I just filter it through the perspective of our roles as parents. And I'm excited today. I'm talking to Jenna Cain. How are you, Jenna?
Hi, I'm doing great.
It's good to see you. It's good to meet you. I reached out. You and I are here doing this now because when I came up with the idea of the Raise series, I knew I wanted to talk to either Mark England from Enlifted or somebody who's worked with Mark and Enlifted in through the perspective again of us as being parents. And so I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, do you have any great coaches who you've worked with who often work with parents and or kids and who might want to talk to me about that particular subject?" Again, through the perspective, through the lens of Enlifted. And within about 2 minutes, he sent me your name and we were connected. And so here we are. So thank you to Mark. A big shout out to Mark and Enlifted for the connection. And of course, big thanks to you, Jenna, for joining me. I would love to just start with maybe just a little bit of background on you, what you do, what you focus on, how Enlifted perhaps fits into that mix. But let's start there and then we'll have a cool conversation after that.
Yeah, actually, last night I was laying in bed thinking, how am I going to explain to Patrick's listeners how I even got here? Because it's been such a roller coaster, and it started. So I'm Jenna. I'm from Ohio. I'm a physical therapist. I have 16 years or less in the pediatric aspect of PT, and I've worked in the schools. I was a Division 1 athlete playing soccer in college. And right after I graduated from college is where everything, all my life kind of came crashing down. I mean, I got into physical therapy school, but from a health perspective, my health just went down the drain. I had joint pains, things that people would say was fibromyalgia. I had 8 years. I mean, this went on for 18 years, but I'm just trying to break it down into a summary. I had 8 years of shingles, breaking out in shingles. After being a college athlete, I put on 25 pounds like that right after college. And I spent thousands of dollars trying to figure out, go to people and ask them like what was wrong with me? Like what was going on? And I got a little bit of relief here and there, but it wasn't until I was able to bring my body out of stress, which have you ever heard of human garage and fascia and connective tissue and kind of blends the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspect of us. So bringing my body out of stress, regulating my body. So kind of like what we're going to talk about. And then looking at the story that I was telling myself through mindset work, which is where Lifted came in. So it was the pairing of all of those that led to now 4 years without any sort of symptoms like that. I mean, I was diagnosed with Crohn's, fibromyalgia, all sorts of things that I no longer have any symptoms of. And so, of course, when you learn something new and you're like, what the heck? This was kind of simple, right? Why don't I need to let other people know about this? And then I have two kids. My kids are 11 and 12. I have a little girl and a little boy. And this started to turn into, oh my gosh, if this could help me, if I taught them how to do this, what would their life look like? And I was in the schools for 16 years. I'm still in the schools. The past 2 years have just looked different because now instead of being the physical therapist working with kids that have challenges with motor skills and things like that, now I'm working with the teachers who are in the classroom with these kids all the time. And I'm working on teaching them how to regulate their bodies, meaning bringing their bodies out of stress so that they can access that prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning we want everybody to be able to have access to when they're at school. But our teachers also need access to that, right? And then teaching them how to look at their mindset. So the story that they're telling themselves when they walk into the building in the morning, when they're in the classroom, when they have a challenging kid. And so my work has it's now I'm integrated this in every aspect of my world with my kids at home, in the schools, really helping parents have the tools that they can help like guide their kids throughout their life so that they can become. Mark and I were actually talking about this the other day. Like, what does mindset do for kids? It increases their psychological and emotional immunity. That sounds cool, but what does that mean? That means that they're going to experience challenges in their life. They're going to have emotions that they don't really understand what's going on, but they're not going to be overwhelmed by it. They're not going to be defined by it. So that's what increasing psychological and emotional immunity means. So that's how I got here through my own struggles, which I feel like if you listen to a podcast, right, some of the people that are the most excited about what they do, it's because it helped them. And so this is now what I do. So I have my own business called Rooted Wellness Studio, and it's all about getting to the root of whatever's causing the issue, because that's what I was missing. I was outsourcing everything in my life. Like I would come to you, Patrick, hey, tell me what to do. Give me the best exercise. I need to lose weight. I need to do more. And all that did was dig a deeper hole for me to attempt to crawl out of.
Right. A bunch in there that I think hopefully we're gonna get into. But the first thing, I had shingles for like 2 weeks, like 10 years ago, and it was the worst 2 weeks of my life. And so I just the fact that you said that I think you said like 8 years on and off, like, oh man,
8 years on and off. It was like every 10 weeks or something. And it was only on the left side of my body,
that's I feel for
which
you.
is
I
interesting.
feel for you. All right, so let's get into so in this raise series, I kind of like to try to think through three big questions, which is like as parents or as coaches, or I love that you work with teachers because I think that this is applicable to them as well, which is like, what are we trying to model? What should we be modeling? And then how, of course, do we model that particular thing? And then the last thing, hopefully, that we can get to today is just how do we talk about it with our kids so that not only do they see it and feel it by just their virtue of them being around us, but also how do we start to give them language and vocabulary so that they can understand it and they can also sort of begin to intellectualize it to the degree that they can, obviously based on their age. You've got 11 and 12-year-olds. I've got a 9 and a 6-year-old. So we're a little bit different in terms of phases with kids.
Perfect timing.
You said this already once or twice. It's just the idea of like dysregulated and regulated. I would love to maybe start there. And if you could give us your own working definition of what those two words mean and what they look like and what they feel like in each one of those states. So just so that we're all kind of on the same page when you say regulated and when you say dysregulated. And when we talk about moving from a dysregulated state to a regulated state. Can you just give us kind of, again, your kind of working definitions of those words?
Yeah. And everything I say, Patrick, is so simple. So if people are looking for like the neuroscience, this is not it. But for me, regulation is okay. So you think about the amygdala in the brain is the emotional center. Okay. And so when we are stressed, that amygdala center of the brain is upregulated, let's say. So for me, the way I like to explain it is it's like you're looking through a straw. Okay. You got a challenge, you got some sort of issue in front of you, and you can only really see like one option. You're not paying attention to your breath. You have no idea what's going on in your periphery. So to me, that's if you stay there too long, you can become dysregulated. Okay. So you're not able to make multiple choices or see different options. So then regulation to me is to be able to, okay, I'm having an emotional response. I can say, okay, like before this podcast, oh, I could have said, oh, I'm really anxious. Right. And then all of a sudden my heart rate goes up and I'm like, oh, what am I going to say? Or I can say, oh, I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm excited. And I can do different things with I could put myself into this position where if people aren't watching, like crossing my arms across my body, taking some nice deep breaths so I can bring myself back into a regulated state so I can access that frontal cortex of my brain so we can have a conversation that would make sense for people listening to it versus if I stayed on the other end of that, right? So that to me is regulation. So but we have to be taught how to do that. I didn't just know how to do that. I had to be taught that. And so when you say like, how do we help our kids? Well, first, the parent has to be able to do it. The parent has to feel the difference between dysregulation and regulation and mindset work. So we can use the Enlifted definition of mindset, which is the story that you tell yourself. Okay. So how do we have to have some buy-in. So when I see clients in my house for, let's say, physical therapy and I test I test their single leg stance. Okay. And it's like, they can stand on one leg for like 5 seconds. And I'm like, ugh, it's not great. I'd like to see at least 90 seconds. Let's do a visual exercise where we're going to upregulate that part of your brain. So I have them do it. They go back, they test it. Guess what? They improve by, now they're standing for a minute. What does that do? that increases buy-in to them actually doing that exercise at home because they saw that it made a difference. So it's the same thing with parents. They need to do their own work to see, okay, how does my day look when I start out the day and I say, this is what I want to happen in my day. Maybe they're writing it, maybe they're drawing it out, whatever form they want to do. And then they can go back and retest it, meaning like, oh, let's go back and look at that and let's compare it to what happened today. Did the day go smoother? Did the things that I wanted to happen? How did I feel when challenges came up? So being able to be sit with yourself and look at that and really get the buy-in because mindset, is not something we just shift it. We just shift it. Oh, I'm sad. No, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. Right? Like your subconscious knows that you're not. You're not going to trick it. And so with kids, it's the same way. It's a practice. And so with my own kids, I've done different things. I know that, oh, I have your book here. By the way, I bought 3 of these and I gave them to a couple parents that just had babies. I was like, this is perfect. And they were in the Enlifted community as well. And I'm like, I love it so much. And actually, I'm going to go to a school with a bunch of first graders and read that book and then have them do an activity with it because it's just, well, this is my bread and butter here. But anyway, so you got to teach the kids how to do it. You have to be good role models and guide them. When my kids get upset, so Patrick, I started this. Okay, so my kids are just turned 11. So my kids were like 7, and 8 when I started into the mindset arena. And so I just started doing all the things that Mark's talked about. We do the soft talk. So looking at those words, right? That don't, this is my kids, what they've written.
I love that.
Probably better
I
than,
love that.
yeah. So playing with colors and getting creative with it because we have to train their brains, right, to see what they want to see. Upregulate. So, anyways, we can get into specifics about that. But as far as like how do we do it, the parents have to do it first.
Yeah. Let's do one more definition. Because again, I like to make sure that I understand when people say these things. And sometimes find myself being like, oh, yeah, I know what that means. And then when I actually stop, I'm like, I don't know that I can define that. So upregulate and downregulate. Something we've talked to Mark a little bit about. I think you mentioned both already once here. Can you just give me a sense of like, what does it mean to upregulate? What does it mean to downregulate? And is that towards regulation and away from dysregulation, I assume?
I can see why that's super confusing. So, from like the neuro standpoint, when I'm talking about upregulating something, that means I'm turning that area of the brain on. Okay. That's how I see that. So, like if we're talking about single leg stance and I want to upregulate, let's just make it simple, like the right side of the brain. Okay. I might do an exercise to turn that on. Okay. The down regulation for me, when I'm talking about down regulating, that means like now I can control my heart rate. I know how to, I'm using my breath to bring myself in a state where now my visual field, let's just go with looking through that straw, is now wider. That's how I would explain that.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, a genuine invitation to pause and ask, how am I actually doing right now? Because here is the thing most of us do not say out loud. There are things that are keeping us up at night, things we carry quietly, trying to figure out all by ourselves. And while that instinct is, of course, understandable, it's not always useful. No one has all the answers all by themselves. Having someone truly with you, someone trained to listen without judgment, to help you see what you can't see from the inside of all of it, that changes everything. BetterHelp makes it genuinely easy to find that person. It's a short questionnaire, a therapist match built around your needs, and 12 years of experience all behind that process. Over 30,000 licensed therapists with more than 6 million people served. You do not have to be on this journey all by yourself. Find support. Have someone with you in therapy. Sign up. Get 10% off at betterhelp.com/excellence. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence. This year, let's make a decision. If we're going to invest in training, eating well, and recovery, we should actually know what's going on inside our bodies. Not guesswork, but data. That's exactly or you should consider getting a Function scan. Function Health's advanced MRI scans screen for signs of hundreds of potential conditions across up to 14 organs, including early signs of cancer, before you might ever feel a thing. FDA cleared, AI image enhancement, no ionizing radiation, every scan reviewed by board certified radiologists, combined with Function's 160 plus lab tests. It is all a comprehensive look at what's going on inside with personalized protocols to help you make sense of all of it. Your labs, your scan, your data. Because the goal was never to live longer in a hospital. It's to live well for 100 healthy years. Get ahead of what you can't yet feel. Join at functionhealth.com/excellence or use the gift code excellence25 for a $25 credit towards your membership. You can also add scans to your membership and get up to $200 credit toward your scan. Functionhealth.com/excellence. I remember the first Mizzen and Main shirt I ever got. I bought it myself. I couldn't tell you exactly how many years ago. It was a good number, but I still wear it. It still looks great. It still holds up exactly like it did when it was new. And that is not an accident. That's what happens when something is built right. Most dress shirts make you choose between looking polished and feeling comfortable, but Mizzen and Main is the one that does both. They invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago. Stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable. No more ironing, no dry cleaning. Just grab it and go. You can wear their stuff anywhere: the office, the golf course, a backyard barbecue. And Mizzen and Main is a veteran-owned organization proudly committed to supporting those who served. And right now they're offering you 20% off your first purchase. Go to mizzenandmain.com. That's MIZZEN and Main.com. Promo code excellence20, the number 20. If you rather shop in person, you can also find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. Okay, so let's talk about why is it important, just broadly speaking, and this obviously is applicable to not just parents, not just teachers, not just coaches. This is kind of applicable to all of us. But can you just give me a really broad sense of the benefits of doing this kind of work to move towards regulation? What are we moving away from? Like, what are we, when that straw is really small versus when the kind of the aperture of our attention, our focus widens? What what do we get by being regulated? What do we lose by being dysregulated?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this the other night. What's the benefit for us to even do this with our children and ourselves? And to me, to widen the aperture, which I like that, thinking about like a camera, is if we can have a variety of choices to pick from when we've down regulated, meaning we've come out of stress and we have these tools, we can think about something different. What if that would decrease suicide? What if that would decrease kids reaching for drugs or alcohol because they don't know how to feel their emotions and then understand what that emotion, what that signal is trying to convey to them? What if it decreased teen pregnancy or decreased abortion rates? That's how I see this work. That's why I think it's so important. It's well beyond like, oh, maybe we don't get mad as much. Or maybe we
Yeah.
can,
Well,
that's
that'd be good
also a
too, but
benefit.
yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely a benefit because, we know our kids can push our buttons and maybe they don't push them as hard when we're able to be like, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath here. What am I telling myself about this situation? Because a lot of times when our, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, when my kids don't do something that I ask them to do, I could immediately go, they're being disrespectful, right? Versus like, maybe I could have shifted how I asked that. Maybe I could have given them a visual countdown. Like it just allows me to think about different options versus just like, oh, nope, this is the only option.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I've had the same thought in those moments where they are pushing my buttons. I try also to ask myself, are they just hungry? Is it like, are they tired? Like, but to your point, like if I just really quickly and whatever's happening, the first thing I think is they're being disrespectful or they're not listening to me. I remove the other options from the table. I remove the questions from my own mind. And then I so narrowly focus on the thing that's happening right now and not the possible reasons why the thing is happening. So to your point, like if you're so narrowly focused, you don't give yourself the space to ask yourself the questions. And if you don't ask the questions, you don't see the options that are also available to you in the moment.
And which type of person would you want in a room with your child teaching them?
Right, exactly. The one who sees the options.
Yes. That's why I love teachers so much. They have so much pressure on them outside of like just making lesson plans. I mean, classroom management, and you have kids coming in that, if we want to go back to that word, are not regulated because of maybe we have a lot of kids in the past, I would say 8 years from being in the schools where we they don't come in with a diagnosis, but like everything is delayed and the behaviors are off the chart, like banging of the heads and throwing things, biting, but like to the extreme. And so these teachers, they need to be able to understand how to be regulated. And all of the professional development, I'll tell you, in the last 16 years that I've been in schools, are not geared to help teachers. It's like one more thing. Like, oh, okay, you need to be worried about the mental health of the kids. Yes. Okay. Yes. And how are we supporting the teachers? Because a lot of times when I go in and I see what's happening, when we want to support the teachers, we bring in like Dunkin' Donuts, coffee,
Yep.
candy. Oh, it's a
Yep.
parent teacher night.
Sugar
Oh,
and
we're going to
caffeine
bring,
fixes everything,
yeah, we're
right?
just going to bring in like the junkiest stuff that we can give them because it's like we're giving them treats like they're dogs or something. And it's like, this is not working. And so that was my whole purpose of creating the professional development series, was because that's what I wanted to give back to them. And and those series are kind of interesting because we start out with movements and breath work before we even start getting into looking at possible challenges they're having in the classroom.
Yeah. Let's maybe talk about that a little bit, because one of the things I really want to do with this is like, okay, we've identified this idea as one of the things we really want to regulate. Like, we want to regulate, or we want to model a regulated state. So, can you talk to us a little bit about like what do you do in those workshops with teachers that I'm sure also apply to parents and coaches and anybody in working with this particular population of young kids? What are some of the exercises? What are some of the practices? What are some of the questions you ask them? Just give us a sense of like, how do we begin to better model this regulated state so that we're not constantly dysregulated and giving that to our kids?
Hmm. Have you ever seen that video where there's two teams? It's on YouTube. I'll have to look up the name of it, but there's five people with a white shirt on. There's five basketball players with a black shirt, and then you're told, hey, count how many passes the white team makes, right? And then at the end, you stop it and you go like, oh, okay, like how many did you get? And this, I'll do this with the teachers, and they'll say, I counted seven, and the one's like, well, I counted 10, and then I'll say, but like, who saw the gorilla? And they're all
Yeah.
like, what? They're like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? So we'll go back and play it, and they're looking for the gorilla, right? So then they see it. That's one of the exercises that I do, is that when we're singularly focused, right? Like maybe we're in that amygdala hijack state, or I have a certain story that I'm running about a kid in the classroom who's just always a handful, always, right? And so when we're only focused on that, guess what? That's the only thing we're going to see. So then it's like, okay, well, what other options could exist? What do we want to actually see from this child? Because a lot of these kids are on IEPs, so the individualized education programs, right? So we're working on goals for them so that they can, academic goals. It could be social emotional. It could be speech and language, fine motor, gross motor, right? But what we don't understand is that it's very difficult for those kids to grow when they don't have a sturdy foundation of a regulated nervous system, which that can we can go into another podcast about like how do we help rewire the brain and things like that. But my point is that that's the kind of stuff we work on. Like what's the story we're telling ourselves about Johnny? What new story could we tell? What possibility, what do we want to see? What if he gets off the bus and he doesn't run away from me? And he comes right to the line and he sits down. And that little piece, it sounds simple, and it is simple. And when you see it work, Patrick, like you're like, ooh, okay. Yeah. This is what Mark calls abracadabra. With my words I create, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm working with the teachers on, is to notice their narrow lens. And then now let's change that lens. So that reticular activating system, right? The lens and filters through which we see our life. Okay, how do you get that? How do you know what lens you're looking through? Well, first we got to look at the words we're using. Do we like that lens? How is that benefiting us, or what's the pros, what's the cons? And then, oh, the only person that can shift that is me. No one else can do that. So that's what I'm doing through that series is like playing with the words, feeling into like what's the mental image you get with that? Okay, let's take that word out. Let's see what happens. So it's the same thing with my kids. I do the same work with my kids. It's just questions. I'm constantly asking questions versus giving them, oh, this person was really mean to me at school today. Instead of me saying, well, they're not your friend. Just don't talk to them tomorrow. Find someone else to sit with. Get over it. Like that's not very helpful.
And just to maybe make sure we're connecting the dots and also make sure that I'm kind of connecting the dots for myself. One of the things I think about when you talk about helping a teacher or a parent, look at the words they're using and the stories they're telling. And then give them a little bit of space to say, are those helpful or hurtful? Are they true or are they not? And then the next step of that is, and why I think it connects really nicely to this idea of like regulated versus dysregulated is like, and I'm just imagining a classroom full of, my kids in kindergarten. So I'm just always imagining is this chaos of kindergarten, right? And so if the teacher's up there with a certain story about 10 of the kids, and those 10 stories are sending her into a state of stress, a state of negative storytelling, a downward cycle, how easily it would be to get so dysregulated that like you could barely get through the day. And so what I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the importance of this work, especially as it relates to stories and words, is that with those words, we're creating either a more stressful state or a less stressful state, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
And
absolutely.
then with that internal state, we're either handing that back to the kids or we're handing them an environment where they can then down regulate because the adult in the room, the authority in the room, the one setting the tone is setting a tone of awareness, of calm, of patience versus of stress and impatience. Yeah. Is that roughly right?
Absolutely. And those are the types of teachers I want in the classroom with my kids. I mean, I've homeschooled my kids the past 2 years. They're going to go back to school this August. And so I feel that this passion that I have to work with teachers is even more elevated now. And yeah, I mean, we're constantly mirroring each other, right? Like even before we got on this call today, me fumbling around with cameras and moving stuff around, you know what I mean? It's just like I had to remind myself, just take a deep breath. It's okay. It's okay. We're gonna figure it out. It's
Yeah.
all right.
That's so interesting you say that. So
It's okay if my lighting looks like
so
this.
just for folks, like there was like 10 minutes of going back and forth with, does this camera look better? What if I move it here? And things didn't work and whatever. It happens like every other episode we do. And I've been doing it for so long. And I'm thinking about this because you just said mirroring, that I've been doing this for so long. I know that the other person, when that happens, very quickly can freak out because they think I'm going to be upset that they can't figure out their camera. And so I try really hard in moments like that to be like, just like the chillest person you've ever met. Like, cool, this takes us 45 minutes. That's fine with me. I got nothing else to do. I'm here to talk to you. So I try because I have felt when I have moments where I start to get stressed, like, oh shit, what if she can't get this thing figured out? What if we have to reschedule? What is that going to do for my schedule? Like all of the things. I just hand that off to you. And you're already, as the person fumbling, I can't move things around in the room for you. As the person over there trying to figure out, I'm just handing you more stress. I'm just handing you another story about how you're messing this thing up and how, well, I can't believe you can't figure this thing out, right? I think that so often happens. I mean, it happens, we're adults, but it also, imagine a kid who can't or hasn't yet been taught to say, okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath. If I take a deep breath and it takes me 2 minutes instead of 1 minute, that's not a big deal. Like we're fine here. Right. And so a kid who's in a classroom, whose teacher is giving in the sense that you're not moving fast enough, you're not figuring this out, you're not giving me what I want, just begins to tell themselves that story. Right. And so I just think it's so worth reiterating how the word I want to use is contagious.
Absolutely.
We have a weird like sense of that's always bad. Contagion is always bad, but calm is also or could be really contagious. Patience is also or could be really contagious. And so as if we as parents are spreading those things versus spreading impatience or whatever it might be, the kids receive it. Whatever it is we're giving them, they receive it because it is contagious.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a couple of examples, Patrick. You might like these to show you how I've used this with my kids and what has shown up. So a few years ago, we got my brother gave us an incubator and chicken and fertilized eggs, right? So we're doing all the things. We're turning the eggs, we're making sure they're the right temperature. My kids are jacked. They're so excited we're going to have little chickens, you know. And come like I think it was like a Friday night after we had visited my brother and his wife, and my daughter woke up in the middle of the night. She was really upset. She's like, my stomach hurts. I can't sleep. You know, I'm having nightmares, all these different things. And, you know, she crawled into bed with us. Okay. Next day, she's totally fine. That night, same thing, stomach issues. She wakes up in the middle of the night. And so the next day, we're sitting on the couch, and I said, you know, what's going on at night? Like, why do you think your stomach's hurting? I'm like, do you think we need to look at your food? Like maybe, you know, and she's like, no. And I could tell like she was hesitant to say something. I was like, well, what do you think's going on? And she's like, well, I'm having nightmares. And I was like, okay. I'm like, do you want to talk about it? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, do you want to? We have journals everywhere. I don't know if you saw when I was fumbling with my computer that we have journals all over the place. And I have theirs. I pulled theirs with their permission. So I was like, well, why don't you just write down like what the nightmare is about? And so she wrote it down, and she titled it. I always like to give a title to things. And so she titled this nightmare, the chicks are dead. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay. And so the story was, she's like, I have it over here. Sorry, I'm trying to move this stuff around. She said, I keep thinking the baby chicks that aren't even born yet are dead. Okay. And I was like, okay, so because I had her read it. And I said, when you read that out loud, how does that feel? And she's like, well, I feel guilty. I feel it. And she's like, I feel it in my left side. So I like to play with like, where are you feeling that in your body? So we can make that connection. And so I was just asking her questions. I'm like, well, when did this start? Like, when did this start? She's like, well, my brother is really silly. I think he was like, hey, you can play this song if one of the chickens dies or something. And he, you know, as a 45-year-old is thinking like, oh, this is silly. And she takes that in and is like, "Oh my gosh, what if the chickens die and it's gonna be my fault?" So basically what we got to after looking at all these things was that other people's words are powerful, that she said these thoughts are not real because it is all in my head. Okay, well, you know, at this time I'm not going to argue with her words, but you know, but they are real because they are in your head, but she's like, "Well, these aren't real because these were spoke into my life." And then she said, but my words are powerful. Other people's words have become my thoughts. So we're just like playing back and forth with questioning. And then I was like, okay, so what do you want to choose to tell yourself about these eggs that we're attempting to hatch, you know? And she said, well, I get to choose my thoughts. I get to choose my words. And she said, I choose life and I choose joy for my future chickens and myself. And she said, I'm a loving mom. Because, like, you know, she's taken on this role that she's the mom of these chickens. Yeah. And then she said to me, you know, mom, this makes me feel really good. She said, my voice matters and my family listens to me. And that was the biggest takeaway for me was that just because I was asking questions, I didn't tell her one thing. I didn't say she was right. I didn't say she was wrong. I didn't tell her not to worry about that. I didn't tell her that those feelings, you know, you're being dramatic. I didn't say anything. I literally just asked her questions and we wrote things down. And then guess what? No more nightmares. And also, I want to leave you guys on a cliffhanger. None of those eggs hatched.
Oh goodness.
They didn't. I don't even know. I don't even know if they were fertilized. I mean, who he got them off Amazon.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just went to the grocery store and grabbed some.
Okay, but now we do have chickens in our backyard and they're fantastic. But yeah, so I mean, my point with that is that she was able to process through that. I didn't have to figure that out for her. I didn't have to pluck out that challenge or be scared of that confrontation that she was having within herself. I was able to do that with just questions. And then with my son, He was playing basketball. It was like rec basketball at the Y. And Patrick, these kids, it was like rugby on a basketball court. It was
Oh yeah.
wild.
I've seen
Like
that. Yep.
they weren't calling fouls. It was just like these kids were tackling each other. I was like, what is that? The game before he got a bloody nose. I mean, he's a good player, but we were getting ready I walked out of my studio and he was standing there and I was like, what's going on, buddy? And he was just like, I need to talk to you. So then we come into the studio. I grabbed a piece of paper and I said, what's going on? He starts crying and he says, I don't want to play basketball today. And I'm like, what? What? I'm like, what's happening? He's like, and he starts crying. He's like, it's so hard when the team relies on you. Right. So I'm just writing his words down. Okay. And then he said, it's so hard when the whole team relies on me. And then we played with like, he said, carrying the whole team is challenging for me. And then we worked through like, well, how many people are on the team? And he's like, well, there's 4 people, there's 5 people on the court. And I'm like, so are you the only person in charge of like having, winning or having a good game or making a good pass or playing defense? And he was like, well, no. And basically this all stemmed from the game prior. He got a bloody nose. He went out, his nose is gushing blood. And then it slows down and the coaches go like, are you ready to go back in? Are you ready? Like, we need you to get back in. And he's like, his interpretation of that, because I said, well, what does that mean about you, Reese? He's like, that they don't care about my feelings. I'm like, okay, because in my mind, I'm thinking, no, you're like one of the better players. They want you back on the court. But that's not what his story was. And so if I wouldn't have asked the question, I wouldn't have known that he was feeling like his feelings were being ignored. And so then we got to, well, what else could that mean about your team wanting you to go back in? He was like, well, I guess it could mean I'm good at basketball. Like, and we said, take the guess out, right? We don't want that soft talk in there. Oh, it means I'm good at basketball. And so then we played with, well, what do you want to happen today in this basketball game? And he's like, well, I want to win. I want to pass to my teammates. I want to be confident, all these things. So we just wrote it out. And guess what? He had the best game he's ever had. And so he's done this so many times that he knows how beneficial it is for how he shows up in his athletic performance. Even like he's into Pokemon. So I guess he got some sort of like God pack. Don't ask me. I don't know about any of this stuff. And apparently it's like a very small percentage of people that open these. And he's like, I can believe this because I wanted it. And so he is just like internally, he has a lot of confidence because of this. And this is what I want every child to have.
This time of year, I find myself wanting to clean things out. Closets, routines, the junk drawer I haven't touched since winter. The same instinct has started to show up in my finances. Let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. You can get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with the promo code Excellence. It is one dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more scattered logins, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in a single place. What I'm most excited to dig into is Monarch's AI, specifically the weekly recap, which flags spending spikes, net worth shifts, and upcoming expenses every week, so nothing sneaks up on us. Monarch goes well beyond tracking what you already spent. You can set goals, plan for big purchases, and map out your entire financial future. It's like having a financial advisor in your pocket. Use the code Excellence at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code Excellence. We're brought to you by David Protein, makers of the most protein-dense bars on the market. One of the things I am most intentional about is making breakfast easy, fast, and consistent, not because I'm lazy, but because I've learned that a strong morning sets up everything else that follows. The blueberry pie gold bar has quietly become one of my go-to ways to make sure that happens. It delivers 28 grams of protein at just 150 calories with zero sugar. That's 75% calories from protein, which is the highest ratio of any leading bar out there. Most on the market sit around 40%. They also have a new bronze line, which is 20 grams of protein, same 150 calories and zero sugar. sugar with a little bit more decadent marshmallow and chocolate texture that is genuinely different. No excess calories, no sugar, third-party tested, just serious nutrition that tastes like it shouldn't be this good. Try it for yourself. Buy 4 cartons and get the 5th free when you go to davidprotein.com/excellence. That's davidprotein.com/excellence. And in real life, go to Target, Walmart, Kroger, Wegmans, and the Vitamin Shop, and you will find David there as well. We are brought to you this time around by Element. That's LMNT, the letters. Ben is going to love this one. In a recent episode, he admitted caffeine is one of his biggest vices, that he has a love-hate relationship with it and hates having anything that he feels like he doesn't have control over. And honestly, most of us know exactly what he's talking about. We reach for the caffeine when we're tired, it works for a while, and then the crash comes harder than we wish. Here's the thing though, caffeine doesn't actually give us energy. It mutes the signal that tells us that we're tired. When it wears off, all that fatigue comes back at once. Element's new lemonade iced tea is built differently. It uses a full black tea extract, not isolated caffeine, bundled with L-theanine and polyphenols the way they exist in nature. That's what gives you a noticeably steadier feeling, less spike, less drop. Plus, the same electrolyte formula that you and I love and we've been taking for years. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no food dyes. Get a free 8-count sample pack with any of your purchases at drinkelement.com/excellence. That's drinklmnt.com/excellence. A handful of follow-ups, but I think the first one is, and Mark says this all the time, which is how terrible it is to believe in your role as a coach, as a parent, as a teacher, how terrible it is that to think that your job is to have all the answers. Because how often does that mean you're going to likely be wrong, right? But the thing that I love what you've said a couple of times now, and I think it's worth reiterating and worth exploring a little bit, is the benefits of questions versus the trap of thinking that your job is to have all the answers. Your job is to hand them your judgments of this is good or this is bad and this is why, versus what you've already laid out here, which I think is amazing, which is my job is just to ask the question and then to ask the next question whenever they give me their answer. Not to say, oh, you don't need to feel that. Not to say, you should be feeling this way, which is just handing them things that aren't real, right? It's you're handing them a story about chickens that may not that may not live, versus just simply giving them the space to think through it and to come up with an answer for themselves. And I think it's really easy to think my job as the parent of my 2 boys is to have the answers for them until they're old enough to have the answers for themselves. And yet, if we spend 18 years, 16 years, whatever you decide is the definite, when they're supposed to have all the answers for themselves. If you spend all of that time not giving them practice in answering it themselves, and then you expect them at 18 to wake up one day and be able to have the tools to do so, it's like, well, yeah, no kidding. Kids leave high school and feel like they have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to be doing with themselves because they haven't had the practice with it.
Or they go to college and they just blow all
Yeah,
their parents' money and just,
that's
like,
right.
stay up drinking and doing all sorts of wild things because they've been either controlled so tightly or they don't know how to move through their emotions and feel them and look at them and go like, "Okay, what am I making this mean about me?" If I would have had these tools growing up, the choices that I would have made would have been very, very different. And of course, I learned from all of those things. So there's no regrets. I want the next generation to be better than me and so on. And the only way I can do that is to pass this down. I think about my daughter possibly, let's say she was running a story that she's not good enough and she has to do things for other people so they love her more. Fast forward to her getting into a relationship with somebody. What choices is she going to make with that story running versus the story of, no, 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 I'm good enough. I have confidence in myself. I don't need somebody to tell me anything because I can find that inside myself. Those two thought processes are will bring in very different outcomes in my mind. And so that's how I see the benefit of mindset work and questions and sitting down and giving our kids time to express themselves. Also, when you do that, who are they going to come to when they're having a challenge? Do you want them to go to I keep going like this if anybody's not watching and listening, like I use these,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
dysregulated, like, peer that's, like, using who knows what to, like, avoid their own emotions and feelings? Or do you want them to come to you because they know you're gonna listen? I mean, I want the latter.
Yeah, and because you're a calming influence, they know that they won't through practice and through experience, they know that when they come to you with something challenging, you're not gonna try to fix it. You're also not gonna overreact to it, right? Which is, I think, a big fear for kids is and what leads to hiding, it leads to not communicating, it leads to not going to you as the parent, which is I'm scared of what they will say when I tell them the thing I'm struggling with. Let's say your son was really didn't trust you in the way that he does. I'm really scared because I feel like the entire team relies on me. Well, if he never communicates that to you, what is he gonna do? Probably he's just gonna swallow it. He's gonna bottle it. And in a year and 2 years, he's probably not gonna wanna play basketball anymore. And he won't be able to connect the feeling that he has today to the reason or the feeling that, like, I don't wanna do this anymore. But then there are all those downstream ramifications of, like, what happens to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old when he doesn't wanna do sports anymore, and it used to be a big part of his life and all the other things, right? And so I just think it's really important to, like, when to recognize, like, the reason why it's so important to model these things that you're talking about is because it creates the opportunity, to your point, that you will be the person that has proven to your kids that can handle the hard things that they have coming. And so that they will come to you and not increasingly go to the internet.
Right, right. And to be able to look at the things, because here's the thing, we can't keep our kids in a bubble. You know, when they were little, I was like, "Oh, I just don't want I never want them to fall down. I don't want them to get hurt. I wanna," and, like, me as a physical therapist, it's like, "Mm, they're gonna fall down. They're gonna learn. We got vestibular input, you know? We got, like, there's all these great things that are gonna happen through those challenges." So I think that's a mind shift for me is, like, challenges are fun. Challenges can be really, like, a great place for growth. It doesn't have to be like, "Oh, why does my kid have to go through this? Like, why can't kids just be nice to them? Why can't everybody just accept my child and love?" It's like, no, all of these things are there to make them grow into the person that is gonna be the best version. You I mean, that's what I want for my kids.
Yeah. And I love what you said earlier, the idea of developing or helping them develop psychological and emotional immunity. That really is that's it. That's what even if we don't have those words or use those words, I think that that as parents is what we are aiming for. And perhaps we do it effectively or we do it really poorly, thinking that we are giving them immunity, but really we're just bubble wrapping them, right?
Yeah, and you think about the that have the worst mindset, like, the worst attitude. Like, are they, like, do they look healthy? Like, I mean, like, their resting face, just, like, they don't exude, like, health, and so it really does affect our bodies. Like, if we carry around anger, shame, guilt, guess what? Your body's going to let everybody know that that's happening, whether
Right.
you're
It's going to
aware or not.
manifest in some way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to go back to the questions just a little bit because I'm really curious in your experience working, well, both your personal experience, your experience working with parents, and your experience working with teachers. How hard is it to get them to see the value of questions and the space that asking questions versus giving answers creates? Is that a really hard shift for a lot of people in those roles, in those positions?
Mm. Yes, I would say yes, and no, depending on how you present it. So when I go into the schools, I don't just go in one time. You know, I don't know if you know this, but at the beginning of school years, it's like they always want to bring some person in to talk and, like, get them pumped up, like, "We love kids. We're gonna have the best year," you know, and, like, "Go do
Yep.
it," and, like, keep that growth mindset, which is not a bad thing, okay? And then they just leave them. There's, like, nothing else. So when I go into schools, I offer multiple sessions. So with the 2 schools that I'm in, I do 5 sessions with them over the year, and then I offer them individual mindset sessions for the teachers. So, like, if they're going through a challenging time, they have somebody that they can call to. And so to me, the answer is yes, it is difficult because you need more than one time, right? Just like we know mindset's like a is a muscle. You don't go into the gym and you go one time and you're like, look at me, I look so good. That's not how it works. It doesn't work with your mind like that either. And the thoughts that you're running because you've been running up people have been we've all been running patterns that we're not even aware of. So I would say that it's the repetition that they need, and then once they see it a few times, then it's like, "Oh, okay. Yep, I'm projecting that thought onto somebody else. It's not actually what happened." And so I feel like it just becomes like a new pattern they start to run, but they need that rep. They need the reps.
Yeah, because once you do it a few times and you see the effect of it, it becomes sort of becomes reinforcing of itself, right? Like, oh, well, it works a lot better if I do this versus if I yell or demand or make rules or et cetera, right? You mentioned you have journals all over the house. Can you talk a little bit about as a parent, how you implement some of these ideas, whether it's journals, whether it's other ways? Like, I would love to know on a day to day basis, like, how have you implemented some of these practices with your own kids?
Yeah. I mean, I have so many ideas. I mean, your book, the wins that I won today, what wins did I win today? And then it's so good because you could literally have a journal. I mean, we have, of
A
course,
Pokemon, I have
Pokemon, we
that
got all
exact
sorts of
same journal in my
journals.
house, so I'm right there with
You
you.
gotta make it fun. They're gonna it's theirs. Make it theirs, let them do whatever they want to it. But your wins journal before bed, thinking about the day, reflection, writing out like one win that they had that day. Perfect example of what to do. We have soft talk words from Enlifted. So those soft talk words are the ones that just make everything a little less clear. And we have them in our vocabulary and we use them all the time. They show up in mine. I'm still plucking things out, but those are words, and I'm sure your audience has seen these words before. But like we just, we write them out and we put them on the refrigerator. Things like probably, maybe, try, I think, perhaps, one day, feels like, guess, could, sort of, all of these soft talk keywords that we use, and we put it on our refrigerator. And then guess what your kids will start doing? They'll be like, Mom, that sounds like you're using a lot of soft talk there. And you're just like, ugh, why did I teach these kids these things? Because they're going to pluck it out of your language too. And at the same time, I feel like the kids, when they do this, they have interactions with their peers and that social emotional intelligence, listening to their peers' words, like, "Hey, do you want to come over tonight and play?" Well, I kind of maybe I don't know. I mean, I could try. And my kids will pick up on it and go, doesn't sound like they're into it. I'm gonna drop it. That's a great skill to have, to not keep badgering somebody that doesn't want you around. But yeah, so we do that, and then we play with in the morning, like, let's say the kids have something, maybe it's a basketball game, maybe it's a soccer game, maybe it's a like with Reese, I mean, because these are kids, okay? He likes to go to these Pokemon card shop things. They'll put all these vendors will come, and he'll be like, "I'm gonna find whatever the Squirtle is." I don't know. And he'll write out what he wants. What is gonna happen that day? So as if like they're planning their day out, they can draw it. Drawing's really fun for kids. Draw what's gonna happen today, and then I like let them tell me about it. That's a really great one to do. Maybe they have to have a conversation with a friend. Well, how do you want that conversation to go? How do you want that to go? What kind of words are you gonna say? What's the feeling that you're gonna have when you leave, like during the conversation and then after the conversation? So it really gets them like into their bodies and gets them thinking and creating like what they want to attract in for the day. That's a fun one. Goals. We love talking about goals. We do a lot of this for our writing in general in our homeschool. It's just, what goals do you have for yourself for this month? Because I mean, for kids, it's hard to think like 5, 10 years down the road. What do you want to do like this month? Or where do you want to take your soccer career? You want to stay in rec? Do you want to try out for a select team? What do you want? Because a lot of times we don't stop long enough to even ask our kids these things. We're just kind of like, hey, you want to try out for this? Yeah, we're gonna okay. I signed you up for this. Seems like you liked it. We got to keep you busy, but I don't really know actually what you want to do. So we do lots of journaling of just like casting things like into the future, like, oh, we want this, these are some goals. And then we love the what if statements. So what ifing what if the bad stuff a lot. I do some PRN physical therapy in a skilled nursing facility, and there's a lot of what ifing the bad stuff, right? Because there's some surgeries, there's different health issues that are going on there. I like to what if the good stuff. We don't do that enough.
So instead of what if I fail the test? What if I don't make the team? What if you ace the test? What if you're the captain of the team, right? That sort of thing.
What if I get picked last? What if I get picked? What if I just get picked? That's nice.
Yep.
Yeah, what ifing all sorts of things is really, really fun. And then coming back, the biggest piece that I will tell people, come back to it and look at it, date it, have your kids date it, and go back and look at whatever they wrote and have them reflect on it. Because that's where, to me, the buy in happens. It's like the test and retest for me in my physical therapy area. Test and retest. Because guess what? You're not going to get buy in. This isn't like going to the gym. You got a before picture and an after picture, and you're like, yeah, yeah, it's working.
Yep.
That's like the best thing to be like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna keep going because I look good. With mindset, it's a little bit different. You have the before, and then you got to reflect on, did this, what came of this because I put this effort in? And then do I want to keep doing this? So it's definitely a skill.
Here's something I've noticed after years of conversations on the show. The people who perform the best consistently tend to be obsessed with fundamentals, not hacks, not shortcuts, the basics, done incredibly well. That's what we've come to love about Momentous, a relentless commitment to the fundamentals and to doing them better than they've ever been done before, which is exactly why their product, Fiber Plus, caught our attention. Most of us optimize everything above the surface: training, sleep, mindset, and overlook the foundation underneath all of it, which is your gut health. Fiber is not just about digestion. It drives nutrient absorption, energy stability, recovery, and focus. When your gut isn't dialed in, nothing else works as well as it could. Fiber Plus is a complete 3-in-1 formula: soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, prebiotic resistant starch, designed to support the entire gut health process from start to finish. It's got clean ingredients, science-first formulation, and it is NSF certified. Right now, Momentous is offering you up to 35% off your first order with the promo code EXCELLENCE. Go to livemomentous.com, and use the code EXCELLENCE. Speaking of that buy-in, that's actually a good segue, I think, into the last big kind of part of this that I wanted to talk to you about, which is how much do you like? Obviously, you've got the soft shock challenge, and you're part of Enlifted, and so there's probably a natural vocabulary there in the house in terms of you talking about what you do and your kids kind of having a sense of it. But for those of us who don't do that as part of our work, how do you recommend we introduce these ideas to our kids or even to our students in a way that doesn't feel like, I don't know how else to put it other than like, in a way that doesn't feel like we're telling them they have to eat their vegetables because their vegetables are good for them, right? Well, first of all, do you talk about these ideas and as practices, as we talk about mindset here because it's important for these reasons? Do you just try to make it fun and easy and natural? Like, how do we start to talk about these ideas to the degree that they're helpful? And of course, more importantly, how do we begin to implement them so they don't feel like mom and dad are making me eat my broccoli?
Mhm. I mean, that's a really good question, Patrick, because it's hard for us to implement this if we haven't done it ourselves. That's my main thing, is that people will say, "Oh, like, come work with my team." And it's like, "Well, I want to work with you, the coach, first."
I like that. Yeah. Yep.
Because they're not, you got to get the buy-in, right? So to me, anybody who's like, obviously do the soft talk challenge. Just notice where those words come up in your life and pluck them out. And an example of this is, I like to tell people, it's like when you go into a restaurant and you're starving, and the waitress comes up and says, "What do you want to eat?" And you're like, "I don't care. I don't care. Probably something, I guess. I don't care. Perhaps bring me something. I don't care. Bring me something. I'm starving." She comes back and it brings you something you don't want. And you're like, "I don't want this." And it's like, "Well, but you weren't specific." That's what, to put it plain, is like, if we're not specific about what we want, what we're thinking, we can't really get mad about what we're attracting into our lives. And to bring it back to how do we do this? To me, it's got to start with the teacher, has to start with the coach, has to start with the parent, and linking up with a coach that can actually help guide you. A lot of my clients, my moms that I work with, it's easy for them to implement this with their kids because now they understand it because they've been working with me and they've been working through their own stories and using and looking at the words and the energy behind them. And so, and anybody else that's interested, take the Enlifted certification, right? Because you do not have to be a PT, a chiropractor, a CrossFit coach, nothing. You don't have to be any of that to learn this stuff because it's so important for everybody to understand. That's what I would say, Patrick. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, yeah, and then just the second part, I mean, I think that that's the through line of everything, which is it's a big reason why I'm having this, these series of conversation, which is like modeling is the first and best way to teach anything, right? And so absolutely, and I love that. The second part though that I would love your advice on is how do you beyond just modeling, which again is the most important part, how do you talk about it in the house so that the kids understand it? Maybe they understand why you have them do a journal, why you're doing the soft talk challenge, like all of these things. Is it useful to talk about the why? And how do you get them to be bought in so that they are willing and excited participants in it?
Mhm. So, for example, my daughter was upset about some sort of gathering we had one time, and she sat me down and said, "Every time we go to see them, I get ignored the whole time." Okay? So what I did was I wrote that exact words down, and then I had her read them. I asked her, "How does that feel?" So it's slowing the child down, asking them, "When you read that out loud, what's the feeling? What's the emotion?" And then I play with the words because it's every time we go, right? It's dramatic, right? Every single time. And it's like I change the word to sometimes when we go see them, I get ignored. That's what, and so I had her read that. What's the difference? Well, I guess you're right. It's not like all the time. And then I changed it to sometimes when we go to see them, I'm reading this off this paper over here, I feel ignored. What's the difference between those two sentences? Like, I get ignored versus I feel ignored. And she's like, "Well, one's like they're doing it to me, and the other one's I'm doing it to myself." So we play with the words because I'm not trying to tell her she's wrong. That's what she feels. After we work through these different challenges, at the end, I ask her, "Well, how do you feel right now compared to when you came in to my room to talk to me about this?" She's like, "I just feel so much lighter. I feel better. And, I feel heard." And really, I truly feel like as humans, that's all we want. I didn't tell her one way or the other. We just kind of looked at her words, played with them, because a lot of times especially as kids, we're in that ego mindset of like, you're the problem, everybody else is the problem. And I'm sure people that have teenagers, parents that have teenagers, we feel that immensely. Like my daughter's getting ready to turn 13. And a lot of times I feel like everything's my fault, or at least that's what I'm told. And so really being able to shift that language and see like, "Oh, okay, maybe I have some authority in this area and I have the power to shift things." So that's how we play with it in my house. We just look at the words and just write them down, and we shift a couple things from like always to sometimes or often, and we play with the pronouns of, "You're always doing this" versus "I'm doing this." That's how we've implemented in our house, but also checking back into our bodies. How do you feel now? Because again, that's the buy-in. It's before and after. Why do my kids keep coming to me if this stuff doesn't work? They wouldn't be coming to me asking for this. And I do the same thing with myself. I know this stuff works, and so I put it into practice.
You mentioned, I think when we were talking about journaling, you asked your daughter, like, where do you feel that? Can you talk about that a little bit? Like the value of, I don't even know what the right word is to that, but identifying where in our bodies we have a sensation and linking that to the thought or to the emotion. Like, what is the value of that for, I mean, for ourselves, but for our kids specifically?
Well, I just did this for myself the other day. I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about how people that don't have boundaries, like I'll just say yes to you because I know it'll make you, I know you'll get upset if I say no. And they called it like emotional slavery or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I had an experience with like a feeling in my body a couple of days prior where we had some neighborhood kids come to the door and my kids opened the door and they were like, "Hey, I don't feel like playing today. Maybe tomorrow." And I'm in the back room going, "Oh no, they're gonna hurt their feelings. Like I don't they should just go out and play with them. Like, why are you gonna do that?" And but for me, it was because I'm that person. I've been that person that's always ignoring those feelings and just doing the thing because I don't want to make somebody else upset. So my point to bring this up, I have a little picture that I'll show you, is to when we relate things to like what we're feeling in our bodies, it helps us recognize and understand when we're getting into those situations again because we're training that reticular activating system to see like, oh, I'm in one of these situations again. And I did this the other day. My neighbor, when we got their mail, he came over, he opened up his Amazon box and he had this book and he's like, oh, Jenna, read this book. You got to read this book. And I was like, okay, I'll take your book. I didn't have time to read it. I knew I wasn't gonna have time to read it, but I took the book and I put it next to my bed, and then I stared at it for like a week, and I was just like, every time I looked at it, I was like, I gotta get this thing out of here. It's just a book. But the emotional toll that it took on my energy and my body. And so the point is like you can play with this with your kids. So I took the word emotional slavery and I don't know if you can see this, Patrick, but I like drew like a little gingerbread man. And then I identified what do I feel in my body when I feel like these different thoughts and words come into my head. So some of my thoughts that I was playing with are I'm responsible for other people's emotions. They'll be mad at me if I tell them the truth. I don't like conflict. I don't want to make them sad. Okay, so where do I feel that in my body? I do the same thing with my kids. We've done this same exact exercise. Okay, when have you felt these feelings in your body before? Does it remind you of any other circumstance you've been in? And it may be like, yeah, when I told somebody I'd pick up their shift at work because I felt bad. I got this sensation in my body. So now we're able to recognize it when it comes up. So that's to me, the benefit is okay, I'm feeling some tightness in my chest. This is my cue that I'm not okay with what's going on. I need to find the right words. I need to check in with myself and go like, okay, what's my truth here? I'm just going to sit, but also kids don't have the words. I didn't have the words. Now thinking back, because I have this exercise that I could say, what other things could I have said in that situation? Hey, buddy, I'm really excited about that book. It sounds super interesting. I don't have time right now. When I do, I'll come grab it from you. But when your amygdala is hijacked, right? I can't even figure out words to say. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll do it. I don't want my kids to be in that situation, but this is a way that you can work through those things and have that. Okay, what other things could you have said? Because a lot of times we don't take time to reflect and come up with a language. And then on the other side of emotions as well, like, okay, what's the opposite of emotional slavery? For me, it was emotional freedom. Okay, what does that feel like to speak my truth or like for me to be kind and clear when I communicate and there's no conflict? And then like here's another picture. It's like, oh, now my hair is longer. Oh, I feel really good. I'm like floating on a cloud. It's like exercises like that they seem simple, but really they're opening up your awareness of the possibilities that exist and you're training yourself. I'm giving myself words, but also for my kids, they're identifying, oh, I feel this tightness in my neck. This is usually my signal that this is too much. I've taken on too much. I feel pressure from somewhere. What do I need to do? What do I need to look at? So that's to me the importance of paying attention to the body because like you said, we'll have some physical symptoms manifest. Next thing you know, you got a tumor over here, you got a stomach ulcer, your vision's going because you're ignoring all the signs because we haven't been taught to tap into our body.
Exactly. We haven't been taught to create the awareness of through the lens of Enlifted of how are we breathing? What are the words we're using? What are the stories we're telling ourselves? And it's so strange because it's so fundamental to health and it's so fundamental to happiness. That's why really excited this conversation, the conversations that I'll have going forward, because hopefully what it can do is help parents and help coaches and help teachers create the awareness for themselves, of course, but then to hand that awareness off to an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, so that they don't have to go 20 years without any awareness of those things at all. Because how much more wonderful will their life be if in their 20s and 30s, they're aware of these things? I don't know what's going to happen, but I guarantee you that it'll be better than if you go through those years without the awareness and you wake up when you're 40 one day and you finally stumbled towards some awareness, which is kind of close to what I got, right? Stumbling towards it over, by the time I was the end of my 30s, I was like, oh wait, maybe this is the issue. So thank you. I mean, I think this conversation's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate obviously the work that Mark's doing as well. where can folks find more about you, about the work, and maybe reach out to you if they so feel so inclined?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. It's Rooted Wellness Studio. My website's rootedwellnessstudio.com. You can find me there. You can find me in the Human Garage app as well. I created the parents and the children's aspect of their communities, like teaching parents how to bring themselves out of stress, but in their kids. Yeah, so find me there and you can contact me directly. My business is so large that you can get right to me. Well, people will contact me. They're like, "I wanna talk to Jenna." I'm like, "You're
Yeah,
talking to Jenna.
you
This
got
is
it.
who you're talking to."
There's only one inbox here. It's mine.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yep.
right.
I know what that's like.
My team hasn't grown this wide yet. So, yeah, reach out to me. I'm happy to working with parents and kids and teachers is my jam.
Yeah, amazing. This has been great. I knew it would be, but now that we're on the other end of it, I can confirm. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Two quick things before you go. First, the 531 listener guide for this episode is in the show notes. 5 big ideas, 3 reflection questions, and 1 key takeaway. Check it out at the link in the show notes. And second, if you're ready to do the daily work, not just listen to the show, the Chase Club is where the crew does that together. Daily lessons, monthly challenges, a Friday Chase Club chat club, all of it at the link in the show notes and chasingexcellence.email.